Hello, we are back on day 2 of the 20th annual Player Networking event, coming to you here from Miami. I am sitting here with two very distinguished gentlemen who are going to tell you all about an initiative that you may not even know that the NFL Alumni has been kicking off, has been doing for a while, and you all are bringing it here to the Player Networking event. So I am here with Mr. Ron Rice, Dr. Robert Turner, both former NFL players, and are a part of this initiative focused on mental health. Big deal, not just in the industry of an athlete, big deal, period. And it's important, I think it's important, especially after the conversation that I just had with Bart about what the Alumni Association does to kind of treat and encapsulate the player member holistically and kind of give them the resources that they need to treat the whole person. So you all, whoever wants to go, talk a little bit about what the initiative is and what you all are doing here.
Well, I'll let the experts speak, but what I wanted to say from a former player's perspective, and Dr. Turner is also a former player, but you know, it's very important for us to really have an opportunity to help our brothers. And that's what we want to present through the Health and Wellness Initiative, another avenue, another channel, so guys can seek help at the appropriate times, at the appropriate moments, and also provide information that can be useful for their loved ones as well when we talk about managed care and all of that good stuff. But, you know, from an alumni perspective as well, you know, we do a lot of things, right? We care for kids and we care for our own, but you can't do any of that without being healthy.
Right.
So I would say, really, this whole thing, I think the best thing about the program that we are talking about in this initiative is that it's grown very organically. Ron and I met a couple years ago when I was up at Wayne State University in Detroit, his hometown, and I was actually giving a lecture at the campus, really talking about some of my overall research, and where I was looking at the book that I wrote, NFL Means Not for Long, The Life and the Career of NFL Athletes, and then transition from the sport into what happens to your life once you're done. And then through that, Ron and I just started having some conversations, and he said, hey, why don't we, in part of looking after all of the athletes, why don't we talk about and think about the ways that mental health can affect them? And so what we did in our very first initiative, we were at Atlanta last year, and we got some people involved through the National Institute of Health, the National Institute of Aging, the Alumni Association. They were one of the partners that really helped sponsor this. And what we wanted to do in the very first thing is to honor the African-American men that played at HBCUs and then made significant contributions to the NFL and the Super Bowl, since it was there in Atlanta. So we were gracious enough. They invited us to come down to Morehouse University. We put a panel to discussion down there. We had an incredible turnout, both of players in the audience. We had players on the panel discussion. We had experts there, and we also had some moms and wives in the audience as well. So the turnout was so significant. We said, hey, I think we might be on to something right there. That one was really focused on depression, right? And then so the next year we said, all right, well, let's do something, and both Ron and Beasley Reese and some other athletes, they said, you know, we always hear so many things in the news about negative mental health, or like depression and all of these other things. Why don't we talk about what can athletes do, or what do athletes know about positive mental health and behavior? And so yesterday we were invited, and we spent a wonderful afternoon, the whole day, over at Florida International. Coach Bush Davis invited his whole football program to come. We had, you know, teachers and administrators from the Miami-Dade County had come out because they wanted to learn how can they best support the athletes in their program. And so this is really kind of year 2 where it's come out organically, and we're really talking about how can we support one another. What have athletes found that's been positive in their lives? What are some of the things they've found that they've struggled the most? It's really about starting a conversation, recognizing that you're not alone, and getting professionals to help one another, both if you're a former professional athlete or if you're a professional in the mental health space, bringing them all together.
That's so good. Ron, one of the things that you said, that you include the families. For me, I'm a veteran. My husband's a veteran. So that approach to not just focusing on the player or the soldier, but keeping in mind and being intentional about including the families, because they're around that person every day, and they need to be empowered to be able to support that person through their healing and through this, because that ultimately heals the whole family. I also, Dr. Robert, you touched on this, like, let's not understate the fact that you two are sitting here as Black men and having these conversations that probably have been avoided for a long time. So how does that inform the work that you all are doing? Does it help, and if so, how does it help you?
It definitely helps. I think, it's the concept of the village, right? We have a lot in common when it comes to sports and being athletes in football. But first off, we're Black men. Right? And so, things are a little bit different in time growing up and living as a Black man in America. And I think we all recognize that. Yeah. But sometimes we don't always want to talk about it and discuss it. But when you talk about what we're trying to provide in terms of services and help, it takes everyone, right? It takes that former teammate. It takes your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whomever it may be. But just saying that, and what we're talking about is not exclusive to Black men.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. Everyone is affected by this. But just at the rate and a lot of things, the stigmas that come along in our communities when it comes to mental health, that's a challenge in itself of being able to have, the confidence at times to come out and say, I need assistance.
Right.
And so for me, it's really interesting how this kind of came about, because I didn't start out by looking at Black men's health. As a matter of fact, as I was writing my book, one of the things that was omitted from the book, or from my dissertation when I was first working on it, was I didn't really cover about race, and I didn't cover too much about injury. But one of my mentors said to me, there's a couple things you really have to do, because I didn't really want to draw attention to myself. I was trying to holistically tell a story from the athlete's perspective, what their situation is. And so one of my mentors said, well, when you played, you had a significant injury, which I broke my neck in college, right? But again, what we do is, for me, that was not really a thing. I overcame it, and I just kept moving on through faith and everything. I just kept plowing through, never really stopped to think about that, right? So I didn't really put my own health, my mental health, but I didn't really put that out in the forefront. But then, one of my mentors also said, well, isn't the NFL 70% Black? And I said, well, yeah, people of color, absolutely. I said, well, you can't do a study about NFL athletes unless you understand the racial component of things, right? So as I started to dig in deeper in that, that's when I really started getting some training in all types of health. And, unfortunately, if you look at Black men's health that don't even play sports, we have some of the worst health outcomes in everything, right? So then if you take people from that perspective, they're coming from those communities, those backgrounds, those family members of having these negative health things, and then you put them into the NFL. Does that all of a sudden mean that their health trajectory has changed? I don't know. So that's part of what we decided we wanted to really study. And so we wanted to understand what are some of the unique challenges that are faced by these athletes that have been in the NFL, that have been in college, that they've been socialized to have other people look after their health. But what happens when you transition out? Are you then looking after your own health, or are you out there in the wilderness by yourself and using the emergency room as your checkup treatment?
Right. Which takes us right back to the mission of the Alumni Association, caring for our own. So it picks up where, as an active player, it kind of comes built in with support, and like you said, people looking after you, checking on you, are you good? And then when that's over, you lose that. But that's where the Alumni Association can step in and provide the support, but then also empower the members to start taking care of themselves. And I think that's so amazing, because again, so often the focus, which rightfully so, it should be on the mission. I'm thinking like a soldier here, on the mission, winning. But you can't neglect those other things, because the outside life, what's happening off the field, does have an impact on what can be achieved on the field. So I think it's so amazing that you all are here bringing this initiative to this event, because again, with players on every level that come to PNE every year, it's important that they think about these things and that they know that the resources are available for them. So I am just grateful
Well, let me jump in real quick because I think this is one of the things that Ron has really helped me understand, as well as Beasley and Bart and all these other folks, is that, you know, and this is kind of, again, about black men's health all along, right? We tend to only hear in the media often the negative stories. Right. We don't get to see the everyday average person. And so when Ron said, let's talk about and let's find out from athletes some of the positive stories that people have to tell. And this is what we just did was you know, just across the hall, we started doing interviews, just asking people, very simple question, one question. What does positive mental health mean to you? And we were hearing some incredible kind of testimonies about guys and how they approach this. And so I just, you know, when they bought that and said, hey, let's talk about these things, I thought that was a key thing that's often overlooked.
Well, you know, one thing, we can always sit here and harp on the negative.
Right.
I can sit up here and tell you how my back and my neck feels from football and injuries but you know that's everybody's story. When you come to these, you know, Super Bowls and all the old fellas get together, everyone wants to talk about how hurt they are, right? But then after a while, let's talk about something different, right? Let's talk about what you're doing, you know, to maintain. You know, what are you doing? How are you treating yourself? And again, it's important to us because we've had so many of our brothers have left us. You know, recently, and you can cut on ESPN or whatever publication it is, and it's in colleges, it's in high schools. And what's great about this PNE event is that you have all of these guys. You got current players, you got former players, you got collegiate players, and you got high school players, all here really for the same goal, right? And that's to improve themselves, right? I mean, branding, marketing, networking, mentoring, all of that. And that's what this event is about. And that's why we want to be a part of this event. And
you all are changing the narrative. Dr. Robert, you never
Well, I was just saying, you know, again, also, I think what I'm learning and through being involved with the Alumni Association, they're changing the narrative of what not only, you know, kind of what it means to be involved in everything, but really they're changing the narrative, and their goal is to make the game safer. Their goal is to also be a resource for everybody on every level, parents, right, wives, children, you know, everybody. They're saying, because if this game, I don't care what anybody says, football, we've shown this year, the numbers are way up from where they were in viewership and everything. Football is here to stay, right? So how do we, when guys are out there in whatever stage of their life, how do we make sure that we support them in ways that they can have whole and healthy lives?
Right. Changing the narrative. I love it. I love disruptors. I love disruptors. So thank you all, both of you, for the work that you are doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring, because that's a lot. Well, that means a lot. You know, being willing to show up and show, like you said, Ron, these players that are in this room at every level. This is important. And it's so important that you all are here to talk about it, to have the conversation, and to capture the positive stories. I would imagine that there are probably some of the players that you have talked to that probably hadn't even thought about what they're doing. You probably hadn't even given themselves the opportunity to think about what that positive image is. And just by you presenting that question to them, I am doing a pretty good job at taking care of myself, you know.
I want to share something that just I have this wonderful support from George Washington University, the School of Medicine where I work, and I have a great research lab team in my lab. And so they came up with this this campaign. We said it's about hashtag my brain is resilient because, right? And so we're just launching that out because we're actually going to start doing the whole research project. And so they took a picture of me with the holding the sign. Ron said I looked like I was holding a mug shot. And I said, my brain is resilient because of the NFL Alumni Association. And I posted that up. And this just goes back to, again, the perception that people have out in the public. Someone respond to that and said, there's no way that playing football you're ever going to have a resilient brain, right? So it's, in other words, in his mind, that person's mind, that we are somehow or another destined to be like they show in the movie, you know, Concussions, that we're all going to, you know, get depressed and blow our brains out. But you know what? That person doesn't recognize, first of all, the support and the mission of the the Alumni Association, but also doesn't recognize that, just as we saw in those videos, which is why we're doing the videos, there are people who are thriving, doing exceptionally well, and putting into practice really strong, positive mental health behaviors. Right?
Yes, so good. This is so good. So, gentlemen, tell the viewers that are watching where they can find out more information about the initiatives. And Dr. Robert, where can we find your book?
Okay, so I think for one, Ron, where can they learn more about our whole initiative for the Alumni Association?
Well, NFLalumni.org.
NFLalumni.org.
You'll go to the website, and there'll be some new information posted about the health and wellness initiative. So look for that soon.
And then I assume we'll see. Will we see the videos that you all are capturing today?
Absolutely. So you'll be able to see them both on my personal website, which is robertturnerphd.com. We also have a gwbrainhealthstudy.com. We have hashtags. We have all of that other stuff. So we're going to make sure that's our mission, is to take this content and blast it out there for people to see. So they'll be able to see it on the PNE. They'll be able to see it in the Alumni Association. We'll make sure that y'all all know where we're at.
Changing hearts and minds.
Right.
And disrupting along the way. That just makes it fun. So thank you all so much for chatting with me. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. Continue to follow the Player Network and event page. If you're not following, please do. And definitely, if you are watching this as somebody that has a remote interaction, remote connection to an NFL player, somebody that could use this information, tag them in the comments or share this video with them. This is so important, so vitally important, especially going forward as we prepare the next generation of these guys. So thank you all so much. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here. Thank you for chatting. And we will see you all in the next broadcast.